Tara Christie, President and CEO of Banyan Gold. Banyan's advancing our AurMac property in the Yukon territory. We already have a 4 million ounce resource at 0.6 grams, immediately adjacent to Hecla's high-grade silver mine. They have a mill just down the road. Victoria Gold is less than 25 kilometers away. They have a heap leach mine. It's an exciting jurisdiction. We're already drilling and advancing our project this year, and our shareholders can expect to see a resource update here by mid-year.
Tara, thank you very much for the introduction. Nice to meet you. Your share price performance last year really bucked the trend of the gold sector in general. You know, it was a risk-off year, and most stocks were bombed out, and your share price has risen nicely. Tell me a bit about that, because it can't just be the kind of drill results.
You know, I think it's a combination of things, as you allude to. One, you know, we really set out our plan and our strategy so that our shareholders can see how we're adding value. Two, we've really been strategic in how we've advanced our property and how we spend our money. You know, our shareholders know that we spend 85% of our dollars in the ground adding value for shareholders. We also, you know, have followed up on what we committed and did that. You know, we drilled 50,000 meters. We had our resource update last year, which was on target with what shareholders were expecting. We've told people what to expect from us this year. We've kept the treasury full with really solid shareholders. And that's a huge part of the success, is who your shareholders are, and do they know the time horizon. So you'll notice, you know, 48% of our share structure now is high net worth and institutional shareholders. That's a big change, but it also is we're growing up, and now that, you know, we've met the market cap, we can actually get institutional investors that understand the time horizon of investing in juniors, and that's been really key to us.
It certainly is. I think it's an underrated or an undervalued aspect of junior mining, is when you really work on that shareholder register. I mean, you need to have initial support from a few people that are prepared to take kind of 2 to 3 or possibly even 3 to 5 year investment bets on a project, on a thesis, because that's actually sometimes how long these things take. One from discovery through to construction decision can take years, and you really need that support. How did you get the first kind of, because it almost, you kind of need one to start. You need something to go on the beginning. Was it high net worths or funds that you've worked with before? You know, how did you get going?
Well, it was tough. Back in 2016, you know, when we were under 5 million market cap and I took over the company, we had a different asset as our primary asset at the time. And those were hard times to finance because nobody, you know, brokers weren't helping that scale of company. Institutions wouldn't invest. So really, my first rounds of financings were people that knew me in the business, CEOs of other mining companies, analysts, and people that personally invested, but who wouldn't yet recommend to their clients. And then, you know, that's kind of the progression as you grow as a junior. You know, there are companies that once you hit different thresholds, or institutions at 20 million, 50 million, 100 million is a really key threshold for institutional investors, because you need to get to that scale of a company where they're comfortable investing. The other problem is, of course, the liquidity. When you're small, if companies to take a sizable position, then of course they don't have the liquidity available to them to get out should they need to. And that's important for funds. So, you know, there's a lot of considerations that they make when they're investing in companies that are beyond the company. It's purely around the mechanics of their own fund. So it takes a lot of relationship building to get them to invest as well, because they need to trust management, know that their money is being spent well.
And that trust takes a while to build up. I've seen it where a company can visit a fund several times, and it's only on the 3rd or 4th visit, when you actually laid out what you've achieved, that you've built up the consistency of delivery, that actually the fund manager or the CIO is prepared to take that kind of long-term step and say, right, okay, this is a multi-year bet, and I'm taking my position at this stage. Good. So you're up at 48% institutional. Where are you in terms of the strategics and retail?
So I have Victoria Gold as an 11% shareholder, Osisko Development at 4%, insiders at 7%, of which I'm 4% and the third CEO. So that's all stuff I purchased in the market or on financing since I became CEOs. And then there's about 30% retail. So you don't really know where all that stock is, but I know we've really attracted some great retail shareholders as well. We were just at PDAC and had the benefit of actually talking to lots of our shareholders, which is great feedback to hear what they're saying about you and what they want to see.
Well, they must be pretty happy with the relative share price performance of perhaps that of other gold stocks in their portfolio. You picked up the company kind of late 2016, and here we are 6 years later, and you've got a resource of 4 million ounces. It's been quite an extraordinary growth of the resource ounces, and you've put out two resource updates, I think. Is that right? Can you just talk about that progression of how that work went?
So yeah, when we first acquired the property or optioned it in 2017 in the summer, we had to do that. There was no existing resource. There were some drill holes. We had to relog, drill core, develop our own geological model, and then we started drilling it out. And by spring of 2019, we really thought our model made sense. And we'd also drilled some holes at Powerline, 3 holes at Powerline, and they'd hit mineralization. And so that's when Powerline was discovered. And then we financed to drill out our first resource in October of 2019, came back in the spring of 2020 with our maiden 900,000 ounce resource. And then we drilled another 40,000 meters over the next 2 years to come out with the resource that we had in spring of 2022, which is our 4 million ounce resource. And then this year last year, 2022, we drilled 50,000 meters towards our resource update that's planned for mid-year this year. And, this resource, again, is a stepping stone. Powerline, remember, was only a brand new discovery in 2019, is, effectively 2 years of drilling, enough time to find the best, to really understand the geological model. I think what we've learned this last year from our geochemical database, our structural analysis, is telling us a lot. And you'll have seen our most recent map that we put out shows our new structural interpretation, some of which we're drill testing right now. I think there's lots more that this property can give. So I'm telling people, yes, this resource update, we plan to get it to a tier 1 asset, because last year people said, well, come back when you're a tier 1 asset over 5 million ounces. So that's what we think we've done. But we think there's lots of growth potential on this property. And you see that just from the scale of the resource. You see that, Powerline has that 3 million ounces. It's one of the 3 deposits in the resource. It's 1.2 kilometers east-west, and we've drilled now 5 kilometers where we've intersected mineralization. We haven't infill drilled at all to get it to resource scale, the whole 5 kilometers, but we can see mineralization, and that we actually think that can likely be expanded to closer to 8 kilometers. So this property, we think, has lots of growth potential yet. And what we're understanding from the geochem and the structural analysis is what the controls on the higher grade are, which I think will be exciting for what we drill this year.
Thank you. Goodness, lots to unpack and to process in that. The 50,000 meters that you drilled last year, and you're continuing to drill at the moment. You're still drilling. When do you say, right, we're going to stop? We're going to have a data cutoff, and this is going to all feed into the new resource estimate. And how many more meters are going to be on top of the 50,000 meters into the new resource?
So it will be the 2022 drilling. So that 50,000 meters will go into the resource. The 25,000 meters that we plan to drill this year and we're funded for, that'll go in a subsequent resource update. You need to pick a date. We know this is going to continue to grow and that the resource is going to change. And eventually, once we start to move to measured and indicated, and we actually start to narrow down the areas where we envision you'd have a starter pit, that's a little bit down the road. We are starting to turn our mind to that for sure, because, now that this resource is at the scale it is, it is time to, and then you've seen that with us growing our team and starting to think towards that. But we still have some targets we want to drill here with just pure exploration this spring. Winter drilling's just so optimal for us with, it's so efficient. It's easy because we don't have to build roads and don't have to have as much environmental damage. So we're using our time right now. We've got 3 drills turning. We've already drilled over 1,800 meters. We did take a break over the Christmas holidays and New Year's and started up our camp in mid-February. So we're off to a great start, and we're really armed now with a lot more information from the drilling that we did last year.
How much more kind of winter drilling do you expect to do, and then how much kind of goes into the summer campaign? Is it simplistic to say it'll be kind of 3 or 4,000 meters now and 22,000 meters in the summer?
Well, we're going to try and get as much as we can, and that's a little bit dependent on how quickly it warms up. It was minus 30 in the mornings last week, but it's warming up to, minus 2 and 0 this next week. So we'll see how quickly things defrost. We're hoping for a little bit more cold weather. We might be the only ones, so the community may not like us that much. But, generally you can winter drill until April, May. And then, some of these areas we still can access in the summer and with spring drilling. But, it's a little bit more difficult. So we're firing on all cylinders right now, trying to get as much drilling as we can. If you have good productivity, we can get about 2,500 meters per drill. So we could even get as much as 6 or 7,000 more meters.
And the aim is to kind of define the envelope of mineralization, because when one is kind of expanding out on a resource, there always comes a point when it gets harder to kind of keep hitting the same grades and thicknesses. So am I right in thinking this campaign is mostly about defining that envelope and hopefully picking out the 8 kilometers that you've mentioned, and not much is going into infill? Is that a fair interpretation?
Yes, we're not ready to start infilling it. I think in talking to my big shareholders, the project really deserves another year of exploration. Most people have 10 years to get 4 million ounces, not 2. So, now with what we know, I think our targeting's even better. We have that on-site prep lab, so our assay turnaround times will be much quicker. I think that's a huge advantage for us this year. And yeah, some of those big step outs, not all of it will be focused on holes that actually can be put in an inferred resource. So right now we're doing 100-meter step outs, which get us into the inferred category. But I think you'll see we'll do a few step outs at 200 meters, maybe even some larger step outs that aren't necessarily worried about whether they're going to go into our next resource update. They're really to show that scale potential and test some of these targets that we have, and just show, do we have these high-grade trends along these 2 east-west structural corridors that we see? Can we define them? What have we learned about the structure between Aurex Hill and Powerline? I think that's all really useful information. And, the key difference, like people look to the east to Snowline and their fabulous high grade, which is great for the Yukon and their investment by B2. And that's good for us. It's the same style of mineralization of us. Key difference is that they know where their intrusion and they've hit their intrusion. We're still in the cupola, or the host rocks that surround that. Where's our intrusion? All of the information on our geochemical relationships as well as the structural relationships are guiding us to heat flows and potentially finding where the intrusion is that created all of this. Is it high grade? We don't know. Is it on our property? Odds are not bad. We've got a huge land package there, 173 square kilometers, and generally these types of things aren't that far away from where the intrusive source is. So, we still got a bit of the search for the elusive intrusive, which, is part of the blue sky.
It certainly is, and certainly should be part of the DNA of every exploration and development company. Looking at what you've got already, just kind of, if we kind of park the expansion of the resource and just kind of look at the 4+ million ounces that you're working on, the grade at 0.6, I immediately think, well, this is likely to be a heap leach target. And on that, what one needs to understand: leach kinetics and the kind of the general metallurgical characteristics of what you've got. And I know that you've done various metallurgical programs, but could you just kind of talk to me a little bit about? And I completely also understand that you haven't started a scoping study program yet, but you are already thinking along those lines. So could you just kind of talk to me about the work that you're doing kind of in preparation?
Sure. So, we started off doing, a fairly basic early program with bottle rolls on pulps, which are fine grain for both oxide and sulfide. Came back with 90% from both Powerline and Airstrip. And remember, when we first started drilling back in 2019, Airstrip was the major deposit. And Airstrip's still open, Powerline's open, but, we're really seeing more potential at Powerline. It's on surface, lower strip ratio, seems to be very continuous. So, our focus has changed. And so you'll probably have noticed a couple of weeks ago, we put out a press release that it's time for us to really get serious about metallurgy and bring somebody on who's a metallurgical expert. So we brought on Brad Thrall, who's actually got a degree in metallurgical engineering. He worked in metallurgy for Barrick. He built the first heap leach mine in the Yukon, which was Brewery Creek. He was part of Alexco. And actually, we'd optioned this property from Alexco. So way back in 1986, Brad had actually been part of doing some bottle rolls on the mineralization at airstrip at our AurMac property. So, that's a great addition because metallurgy, most juniors, we do fairly spotty, some samples here, some samples there. It's now time to have a lot broader thinking. When we have 5 kilometers, you can't assume it's all the same. We need to establish geometallurgical domains, and we need to actually then, do more bottle rolls on different meshes, column tests, put together flow sheets. What are the flow sheets? And then, the other really exciting thing right around us is Victoria Gold's Raven, which, if you stand in our camp and you look across the valley, you can see the drills up there, the lights of it. So, that's high grade 1.7, and, their results, they're putting out a new resource on that imminently. And I think that's going to be really exciting. I think we could see some higher grade. And with some of the higher grade that we're seeing, we not only want to do the heap leach scenario, but we also want to look at the mill and CIL, which is also cyanide leached. But I think that there could be some rationales for that somewhere. And this is a district with everything that's being found from all the other companies here. And some of the bigger companies have actually said, and some of the ones that I've met with recently said that they'd look at that. They don't do heap leach. So it's like, okay, well, let's make sure that as people are looking at this district, we are the prime location. We've got hydropower right across the property. We've got a road. When you want to actually build infrastructure, you want to pick the best location for that. So that's the other one. We've got this huge deposit. 2, we've got this exceptional infrastructure, which is a big advantage for us. And I think, is Victoria Gold going to mine the Raven and take it to their heap leach pad as some high grade, or at 74% is their average recovery at Victoria Gold, life of mine grade, very similar to ours at 0.64. But again, they started their first 2 years with 0.8 average grade in their feasibility study. So for me, I've already got some metrics right down the road without us doing our PEA. What do I need to find? Well, I need to find a little bit higher grade for my 2 years, show that there's growth potential. This is a district with what Victoria Gold has drilled at depth. With their Raven, they have, that mine there is probably going to run for 20 years plus. And then they're permitting their expansion project now. I think it's an exciting area to be in this jurisdiction.
Did Victoria Gold did they get kind of high recoveries on the test work and then kind of average out at 74% on the leach pad? I mean, because that's quite a common way of going about things.
So yeah, if you look at their grade reconciliation in their corporate presentation, the project has been reconciling well. The challenges Victoria Gold's had has been purely mechanical, to do with the mill and conveyors, which I think they probably have worked out now from what I'm hearing. And I think that's good for us too. Having proof of concept that it actually worked out right next to you is excellent. So, if they have a few quarters of doing well, that bodes well for everybody in the district.
And it's a nice benchmark for you in terms of valuation, because you can also say, well, this is that could be us in 2 years' time or X years' time. You can trace your potential value path relative to their historic performance when it suits you.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Well, I think that we're in a pretty unique position, as once they start cash flowing and showing that works, they can grow internally, but they can also look for acquisitions. Hecla next door to us, with the attack bid, has shown that they're interested in gold projects in this jurisdiction, and they're right beside us. And then you've got, the recent investment by B2 in Snowline. So there's another competitor coming in, and we knew that Barrick was already invested in attack. We know that Newmont's got their coffee. I think there is some light being shone on the Yukon. And you can permit a project here. That's a key thing. It's a stable jurisdiction where you don't get projects nationalized. We've got one First Nation to deal with, which knows mining and works with the 2 mines right next to us. So this jurisdiction and location are definitely in our favor.
Tara, thank you so much for that introduction and the depth of information you've shared with me. Before we wrap up, can you just give me a kind of quarter by quarter what your milestones are? Now obviously, the main one is the resource in the middle of the year, but just kind of if you could break down the year a bit, that would be really helpful.
Well, we'll be drilling throughout this year, and so we'll have results in every quarter. Starting, well, maybe not this first quarter because it's almost done here, but and then that resource update. We're planning to have meaningful metallurgical information by the fall. I want to give Brad a little bit of time to actually, that was one of the things is he's a credible metallurgist. He wants time to make sure that he's done it right so that people don't pick it apart, and we actually have the right things underway across the whole property. So that's going to be exciting. News flow wise, drill results are going to be what drives us through the year along with that resource update.
Great. Thank you very much. I look forward to catching up perhaps when the resource is out.
Great. Look forward to it.